OTA's week, Miami Dolphins fans. Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, sort of exiting that lull between the NFL draft and when the team finally gets on the field. We are here. It's OTA's week. You can see on the scroll there. Off-season OTAs workouts begin on Monday. You can read the dates for yourself, though. But remember, these first OTA dates, everything is voluntary. However, with that said, if you go back to last year with Mike McDaniel, team actually had really good attendance, good turnout for those. You can see that the mandatory minicamp does begin June 6th through 8th. So that won't be voluntary, unlike these first ones here at the end of May. But in today's video, I want to talk about kind of my top 3 things that I'm going to be watching for, that I'm going to have my eye on as these OTAs begin. Obviously, plenty more to choose from than just 3, but that's where you come into play. If there's anything that you've got your eye on that you'll be watching for during these OTAs that I don't cover today, go ahead, drop them in the comments. Curious to see what you've got your eye on as the Dolphins begin these off-season workouts. And real quickly, before we start, I'm going to be back with a video recapping each day that the media has access to, because they're not allowed access to every single one, so we won't always have reports. However, the ones that are reportable, we will be back with a video recapping all of the day's action. So get subscribed if you have not done so already. But let's start with the first thing that I've got in mind, and that's who emerges outside of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Because what the offense run through last year, these two, 51% of all Miami Dolphins targets in the pass game funneled through those two. And I didn't really separate Tua's targets from guys like Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson as well. But I would assume, even if I separated these two, Tua's percentage of targets, 51%, it's either that, it could very well be even higher than that. We know the offense went through these guys. And who was next in line? The next target share getters, Trent Sherfield, Mike Gesicki. Where are they? No longer with us. So you got to say, who's going to step up? Because what's the evolution of the offense? As teams started taking away the middle of the field, they started focusing on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We didn't really have nowhere to go. So we need another third target in that passing game to emerge. Now, we still have Cedric Wilson. He didn't get dealt over the offseason. We brought back River Craycraft. But do we see an emergence of a guy like Braylon Sanders, Eric Ezekama? Is it a new guy? Is it a Braxton Berrios? Is it a Robbie Chosen or Chosen Anderson or whatever the hell he wants to go by at this point in time? Is it a tight end? You got 4 of them now, but are any of them going to emerge? Smythe, Stoibert, Connor, the new guy, Elijah Higgins? We've got options, but I have definitely got my eye on seeing who's getting the targets in these OTA sessions and who's doing the most with the targets during these OTA sessions. If I'm putting my money on it today, I kind of got my eye on a guy like Braxton Berrios. If I have to be honest, though, I'm cheering for Eric Ezukanma. As a former 4th-round pick, as a guy that showed promise in college, a little bit of a surprise pick when we took him in the 4th round last year, I'm really hoping for him. But that actually bleeds nicely into the second thing I've got my eye on. It's, are we going to see second-year growth? A guy like Eric Ezukanma, a guy like Channing Tindall. And we'll start with Ezukanma. Active for 1 game last year. 1 game. In that game, 1 target, 1 catch, 3 yards. Now, even as a 4th rounder, obviously we didn't have super high expectations for him. But, man, that output is just, lack of a better term, disappointing. And I think what made it disappointing was kind of the expectations that he created for himself during the offseason. Seemed like every OTA, every training camp practice, numerous times in preseason games, it was him getting his number called. It was him making a play, going up, getting jump balls, making plays after the catch, things that we saw from Texas Tech to say, you know what, this guy, we can develop into something. And then it just never transpired on game day. And we never really thought he was going to get a ton of looks the way it was. With Hill, with Waddle, with Wilson, with Gesicki. But at the end of the day, we expected him to be active for more than just 1 game. But if you think about kind of what transpired, what it was, all reports, everything we had heard, it's the mental side of things when it comes to Ezukanma. And the coaches thought, you know what, we can trust him. He can play 1 spot at wide receiver. But with the way that our scheme changes, with the way that our offensive game plan changes, with how interchangeable we want our wide receiver pieces to be, they couldn't trust him. He could do, let's just say he could play maybe the slot, but if they needed him to play on the boundary, could he go out and do that? Coaches didn't think so. And what we saw? We saw River Craycraft activated a bunch. We saw Braylon Sanders activated a bunch. They both had more statistical output than the guy like Azu Kanma. So keeping an eye on him. And then when it comes to Channing Tindall, he was active on game days more than a guy like Azu Kanma, but chalk that up to special teams. We hardly saw any run on the defensive side of the ball with him. What did he get some run at spy linebacker that game against Justin Fields and the Bears? And even only that lasted a possession or two before they scraped that. He had 3 tackles last year as our first pick. And no, it wasn't like a first round pick or anything. It wasn't the 3rd round. But for comparison's sake, a guy we already talked about, Trent Sherfield, also had 3 tackles. So we're not talking about much in regards to statistical output for this. But once again, it's another guy that really struggled more so mentally than anything physically or on field. But now guess what's in store for him? A brand new defense, a brand new scheme with Vic Fangio. And granted, he does have a year of NFL experience now, and he's likely learned some of the nuances, how to study, how to prepare for practice, for game days. But regardless, it is a brand new defense compared to what he spent that year learning. So look at the linebacker position as well. The Dolphins, they did some this offseason, but they didn't go crazy. They added David Long. That's like the splash addition. Brought him to the middle. Jerome Baker remains on the team. A lot of offseason speculation that maybe he would be moved. We've heard some offseason rumblings that maybe Andrew Van Ginkel gets a little bit of run in the middle as well. But at the end of the day, they didn't do as much at the linebacker position this offseason as they probably could have or likely could have as well. So maybe that bodes well as a second-year jump for a guy like Channing Tindall. Maybe Vic Fangio sees some of that potential and says, you know what? Give me a year with that guy. We'll see what's going on. But definitely another guy that I'm going to have my eye on here as OTAs begin. Quick qualifier before I get into my third and final one. Most often with these OTA practices, the media can't report on kind of who's lining up where and all that stuff, especially with the offensive line. So while paying attention to who's getting offensive line reps and where are they getting them and what's the pecking order would obviously make my list, I'm going to leave that off because we're likely not going to get any of that type of news. So with that, let's talk about a rookie. And that's De'Von Achane's usage in the pass game. Now, he wasn't relied upon heavily as a pass catcher at Texas A&M. 65 career catches, 554 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But we know about his natural ability to get the job done as a pass catcher in the receiving games. Actually, we even talked about it some in the pre-draft player profile we did when we talked about potential fit with the Dolphins if they were to select him. And luckily for that one, they did. But we talked about in that one that ability as just a natural pass catcher, even when it's not a great throw, when it's not on target, that ability to make off-body catches for a guy his size and stature is already there. His ability to run routes, not only from the backfield, but getting him lined up in the slot, which I think that we're going to do. And I want to hear some reports from OTAs with him doing that. And then last but not least, that ability to transition from route runner, pass catcher to ball carrier after that. Very, very good for how young and for obviously not having NFL experience, but transitioning college to pro, that's something we like to see as well. And now this couple of days ago, I've been seeing some articles, former GMs, how would they use him at the next level? If they were the Dolphins, what's the ideal way to get him involved? And it's that ability as a pass catcher that people are just raving about. One of them that I recently read said he's got what you look for in a pass catcher. The route runnings, the hands being natural. The only issue is the size. And that's the thing. You're not going to pepper a guy that's like, 5'8", 5'9", with a bunch of targets out of the backfield. But that's likely one of the reasons he wasn't drafted as high as he was as well. But the reports are out there. People are excited to see what he can do, not only as a running back, but as a pass catcher. And we talked about it. Who can evolve and be another target for Tua? That maybe is your answer. Using Achane already his rookie year, letting him get established a little bit as a pass catcher role with how natural he already looks doing it. Also to mention, a quick way for Tua to get rid of the ball, get the ball out of his hands. We're making up for maybe a little bit of a patch offline as well. Something to keep an eye out and a way for De'Von Achane to contribute already in year one. But like I said, that's what I've got my eye on, but there are plenty of more things to keep your eye on as well. So go ahead. What did I leave out? Drop those in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation there. Like I said, I will be back every day that there is an OTA report to have. We will have it on the Fins Up Network. So go ahead and get subscribed if you have not done so already. And until then, Dolphins fans, Fins up.